Welcome to another episode of Reptile Fight Club. Welcome. I'm Justin Julander, Australian Addiction Reptiles. And with me, as always, Mr. Chuck Boland.
Back again, trying to win. How y'all doing?
All right. Well, things going well?
Things are good.
Good 4th?
Yeah, good 4th. Got the honor and the privilege to do an episode of Lizard Brain Radio with Bill Bradley, and that was awesome. Man, I love the way his mind works, and it's always such good conversation, and we just had a good time. And then watched fireworks for the 4th, and I started my outdoor diamond python cage. So that's cool. I'm
very cool.
Yeah. So I've got like a 2x6 back panel, and then like maybe like a 2x4 side panels that I'm gonna try to do rock work on. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that, and the panels are plywood, so I am kind of thinking about maybe trying fiberglass, figuring out how to do some molds, and then do some glass and resin. We work a lot at that with that stuff at work, so I've got some pretty good,
right up your alley.
Yeah, yep. So and then and some not so good news. When I was putting the plywood in my truck, I must have lifted and twisted because I hurt my back, and my back is jacked. Yeah. And I just want to take a minute to talk to all of you young Reptile Fight Club enthusiasts. Always stretch before you fight, and take good care of your back, because I am only 45 and I am currently walking around like I am 95 years old. So
cherish it.
Yes,
cherish it.
Be careful with your back, because once you jack it up, and I do this like my back, and it's always some kind of not even like crazy, not benign, but not crazy. I wasn't lifting heavy weight, but it was a lifting, twisting motion, and If you have to do back safety for work, that lifting, twisty motion is what gets you every time.
Oh, yeah.
So so trying to not look like an idiot every time I have to stand up or move or get into the car, or making old man noises all the time. Now it's bad. It's bad. So.
Makes life pleasant, doesn't it? Getting older, it's a joy.
Yeah, there's no. People say getting into your older years are nice because you're set up in life and things, but there is definitely the non-glamorous side of growing old. That's for sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
How about you, man? How was the 4th?
Yeah, it was nice. We went to my in-laws and basically just hung out in the pool all evening.
That is what's
watched some
up.
Fireworks from the water. Yeah, it was really a nice day.
Mm-hmm.
Good food, man. My brother-in-law prepared some Wagyu beef or something.
Wagyu?
Wagyu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wagyu.
Wagyu. Okay.
I don't know what
it was tasty.
Yeah, for sure.
some good brats.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a nice day.
That's very highbrow,
Yeah. I didn't hear the story of where he got it, but I think it was something with work. He's out whining and dining these. He's like a salesman, so
nice.
Or he is a salesman, not
nice.
like one.
Yeah.
But so he sometimes gets these really sweet deal or extra beef or whatever.
Hookups.
Yeah. So he's
nice.
got the hookups for
Is
sure.
it hot where you're at right now, or?
Yeah, it's been pretty warm over here. Luckily the nights cool down nicely, but it's been pretty warm. A little bit of wind.
You said got to spend time at the pool. That was a real. Not that any time at the pool is bad, but the best time at the pool is when it's hot as Satan's butt. So
yeah. And they've got a pretty sweet setup, so they had a bunch of shade umbrellas and stuff, so you could sit in the shade in the water or sit in the sun.
So the kids had fun, nice, and the adults got to sit in the shade and enjoy.
Yep, exactly. I was in the pool most
of course you were. You're a fish.
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't know you doesn't know what a fish you are.
Yeah. So that was fun. But yeah, I messed up my neck. I cricked my neck. It kind of went away last night while I was asleep, but it was nothing too strenuous or anything. I just moved it wrong or something.
I'm telling you, man. See
that whole thing, like you got the stiff neck, you got to turn your whole body.
That's the worst.
Yeah, not fun.
Nope, but it doesn't feel good. That's for sure.
Hey, I can't complain though. I feel pretty good for. How old am I? 47.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
about
good.
50 years old. I'm closer to 50 now.
I know it's
pretty crazy.
It's nuts, man.
I always thought 40 was old, but 40 is not old.
No, well, now that I'm 45, I'm like, oh man, I feel bad I ever said anything about anybody who was my age now, and I don't feel like I'm old, but like there's just certain times where you're like, oh my god. Is this what being old is going to feel like?
Sometimes.
Like you're like, oh crap, this is not good. This is not good.
Went and played a little pickleball with my daughter.
Oh man, that is an old dude. That is an old person activity.
It is. But like,
my
I was
mom
still pretty
plays
sore
pickleball.
that night.
Yeah, my mom plays pickleball.
And we were playing singles, so it's a lot more running and
gotcha
diving for to save the.
I don't think my mom plays that kind of pickleball. Yeah, my mom.
She's the doubles where you stand in front of the net and just hit it back and forth.
I can't even imagine my mom diving for. There would be broken hips and all kinds of bad things for that. Yeah, that's not good.
It's a fun sport, though. I think it covers a nice range of ages. You can still play, but I get a little intense.
That's good.
That.
Well,
I'm a competitive guy.
Oh, don't have to tell me, man.
Don't
you almost pushed me down trying to run for that snake. I know how you are. You're not getting there first. Take that. Pow! Ah! Push me down the cliff. I dare you.
It's It bleeds into a lot of things, but
I know.
I
know.
That's the reason I want to stay in good shape is so
you can
so I can eat stuff I want to eat, but
right.
also
you can
so I
Chuck
can
to the snake.
herp when I'm older and and still be able to flip rocks or whatever
or push Chuck down
get
a cliff.
that herping in. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. How are them baby coastals doing?
They're doing really well. I've gotten 4, maybe 5 of them to eat. I think almost all of them have shed. Some really, I think I sent you a picture not too long ago, but really some really nice reds in there, man.
That's cool.
Pretty stoked.
I love the reds.
Yeah, that's and the Chemist is the founding red line from Luke Snell, who back in the day produced some of the nicest reds that people had seen. So not surprised there's awesome reds in there, but pretty stoked. Just starting to feed snakes around here again and getting I'm actually starting all of the Tracier onto rats now, so I'm gonna really probably put some size on them this year a little bit.
Do they switch over pretty well? Like they don't have any issues?
I haven't had. The hardest thing was the ones. So it's weird. Like I have had really no feeding issues once they started, and I would say once and I would say Tracier in general, once they're kind of adjusted and acting, a little bit, well established, they're food smashers like any scrub. So I've never really had major issues with feeding. I had a few babies in each clutch that were tough feeders. Just didn't want to eat. Had to assist feed 2 of the first clutch, and they were they would eat, the assist feeding eat, and then eventually they started eating, and now they're fine. Yeah. So cool. Pretty typical.
Once they go, they go.
Pretty typical story. But once they go, they kind of go, and thankfully I don't want to have blackhead problems or some of the problems you have with, ant hills or,
I just started off in the blackheads and they didn't take on their first, try.
That would be, I feel like that would be kind of the payback gift for only getting 2 eggs, as if they both ate on the first shot.
Start eating on no problem.
That would be like, all right, okay, we'll take this year, fine.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes, but I'll probably resort to assist feeding here soon. They didn't seem to have like the big belly that everybody describes, and you know, I've seen in pictures. Like they didn't have like a huge fat belly when they hatched.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know you know what that means, but it's it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
And
I guess,
and you didn't cook them really hot or really cold, like you were pretty middle of the road. And
yeah, I mean, I set it at 89, but I think it was actually like 87, 88, somewhere around there. I need to get more, just put thermometers everywhere, you know, have one in each nesting box or something, or egg incubation box.
You didn't pick Jordan's brain at all when we were out, huh?
I know, I should have.
Yeah, you should have
done that more. I mean, I've been texting him and asking him lots of questions.
I figured.
I
figured.
Oh yeah, he's the man.
Of course, yeah. He gets high praise.
Yeah, I did start offering to the Antaresia. So I have a clutch of eastern stems that hatched out and that are all set up individually, and half of them took on the first try. So yeah, it started out nicely with the eastern stems. So I've got some westerns that I just set up this last weekend, and so hopefully they'll go as well. The westerns seem to be a little bit trickier than the easterns, but you know, once they get going, they're fine.
Yeah,
they're not too bad. There's a few tricks that work with westerns that I haven't really worked globally. You know, they worked really well for the westerns, but not most of the other stuff. So it's kind of weird how that works. You know, you get certain tricks that work for some and not others, but what do you do? Snakes.
You move forward and you don't look at the gift horse in the mouth, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Did I talk about the Hosmeri last time? Where I was checking the cage and there was one missing. Yeah, so she's still in the cage, and she's
and you have your eye dead on her now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now I make sure that door is shut. But
definitely,
I'm pretty sure she remembers being out, and so she's looking for a way to get back out. So yeah, it's kind of funny that way, but what do you do? I finally got them all set up. I got the 3 Gurnia cages and the UV light, so they come out and bask under the UV. I just have it come on for a couple hours a day in the morning and then the evening. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but that's the way.
What kind of UV are you using? Are you using the
Arcadia?
You're using the
Arcadias? A 4-foot fixture with the bulb, so it runs across all 3 cages. Of a Gurnia.
Yeah. I mean,
and the baby.
I like that when you're using multiple cage setups. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, and so I've just got it on the timer to come on for a few hours.
Are you running like a 6%?
I think it's a 9 or 14, something like that.
The 14 is well, I guess
it's not. I don't think it's
the desert. That's like the desert extreme one or whatever.
I think I got the middle of the road one. I didn't get.
So it's like a 12. It's like a 12.
Yeah,
I think it's like 6, 8, 12, maybe 14. Maybe I'm wrong there.
Maybe it was the 8. I got the one that was recommended for type species. So
I mean, they do pretty good. They do pretty good with
and they've got some distance under it, so it's not too close.
And they're using the rock wall faces, or
it's kind of cool to watch them cruise across there. I threw the tree skinks in their new cage, and they went right up I made some kind of fake tree limbs that are attached to the back wall. You know, they're foam, and then with tile grat over them, and made to look like real trees or whatever.
Nice.
It worked out pretty well. I put some real cork bark on there, so it would kind of have they could kind of go under the bark a little bit. Yeah, I don't know how well that'll function, but they can climb up it, and they've been enjoying it. They've been crawling around. I threw in some a little branch with some oak leaves in the depressa cage the other day, and just to give them something new to check out, a little enrichment, and I'm gonna start doing that with the others as well. Like just give them a little branch of leaves or something.
And you're not doing any type of a bioactive in there, right? Like it's
not really. No, it's not really set up for bioactive, but most people think you throw a few pill bugs in there, and it's a bioactive. Yeah, but no. It's more than that. It is. And these are, probably a little on the small side for a bioactive. I mean, they have a lot of height, but not a lot of depth.
Yeah.
The floor space is it's higher than wider, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
But it's fun. And I've got this, the Wise cameras or whatever trained on it, so I can open up the Wise app at work and watch my. I was doing that while I was waiting for my wife to.
Is she in there? Is she in there? Okay,
Yeah.
she's in there. All right, cool.
Oh yeah, she was doing like the treadmill, trying to find a way out of the cage, crawling on the glass or whatever. It's pretty funny, but yeah, she's looking to get back out. I guess I don't know why. It's not like there's great conditions out there for her, so. But I don't know. Maybe that'll be part of our discussion today.
Reptiles making good choices.
Some thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Who's to say?
Yeah. No, I had an interesting discussion with Mike Plank, and
nice.
He keeps a lot of Vigurnia. So I was calling to ask him if I should leave the baby in with the parents, the baby Depressa, and he thought that would be appropriate, because there's only one baby. He said if there were more, maybe separate them out, but where there's just one, it'd probably be beneficial to have.
And they just beat the babies up if there's too many of them, or what? It's just
I don't know. I think it's more of like they're a communal lizard, so they kind of like the presence of others, or something. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
When we found those. The Signitos, they were together as a pair in a single rock outcrop in Western Australia, so that was kind of interesting, to see that in action in the wild, where they were both under the same rock, right next to each other. So, they're more of a communal lizard. A lot of the Igurni are, especially some species are very communal, the Gidgee skinks and those kind of things. But... yeah, some are less than others, and we didn't. We did find some Depressa kind of close proximity, or in the same tree crack, it seems, but they seem to be more find one here, find one there kind of thing. But,
yeah, my standing day geckos are a little communal, and it's funny because I have 5 juveniles in one big eco, and they 2 of them. It's almost like they pair up, and there's 2 sets that are together all the time, and one of them will like put his pad over the other one like they're like buddies, and it's just it's hilarious, man. They have such funny personalities, but it's neat. It's neat to see those kind of behaviors when you kind of are like, man, they like totally pair bond. And I mean, I've seen like almost like pair bonding kind of behavior in other stuff that you wouldn't kind of think like I feel like my Traciae prefer one male. The female prefers one male over the other, and they tend to hang out all the time, whereas is not so much with the other, but once in a while, So I'm like, is that a thing? Is that like me? I don't know.
Anthropomorphism?
Could be. Could be.
I don't know, though. It's, I think definitely there are some social lizards, and those day geckos definitely appear to be social animals. Like you find them in the wild in colonies.
Yeah.
That was kind of the
and it's
fun
interesting
thing about,
though, because I would say Grandis is not a communal, not at all. Like you can keep them in pairs, and that's it. Like if you
or they just have a larger, comfort zone,
I mean,
so if they're on a 60-foot tree, they can have 5 or 6 individuals, but they have a little more of a
but they're definitely very
place to
territorial.
escape.
Very territorial. So if if it makes sense territorial wise, they're probably okay. But in captivity, you do not want to do that. And
that was fun. In Hawaii, like we were in this resort with my in-laws, and I spent more time probably looking at the geckos on the trees and stuff. But you'd see a male and several females kind of all just hanging out together, and they'd interact a little bit or chase each other a little, or but they'd hang out pretty close to each other. So I think I got a picture of like 6 or 7 in the same shot, all on one tree next to like a beach chair. They're just very comfortable with people, and they have their comfort zone. You get too close and they take off.
And you wonder what being in a cage does for their territorial. I mean, like if it would be the difference of having a territory where you could let others come and go from, rather than having a restricted territory of 4 walls and then something gets in there. You know what I mean? Like I would view that differently if I were them. So I could see why.
Yeah, that's the trick, I guess. That was kind of part of this conversation with Mike Plank, was trying to decide if keeping them outside was better than keeping them inside. Because a lot of times, you keep stuff outside and it just turns neurotic, and it it thinks everything's out to get them, so it acts more wild and hides a lot, and you don't know if that's gonna be better or worse for breeding, if you're worried about that aspect of it. And but he was thinking that they did better outdoors. Like they had babies more often, they ate probably less food outdoors, which was interesting to me, that they would do better outside in an outside setting. Now he's in Southern California. I don't know if it would work the same out here, and I couldn't keep him outside for the majority of the year. But yeah, pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure he brings them in if weather is too rough.
When you're doing really, really well with them and you just have too many, you can send me some and I'll let you know how it goes.
You can put them outdoors.
That's right. That's right.
And then just send me the babies every year.
We could work that out.
Yeah, that'd be fun to have it. Yeah, I think that's kind of like a lot of herp keepers' dreams, is to keep stuff in an outdoor setting, just because you can do more outdoors as far as making a naturalistic enclosure, seeing more wild type behaviors.
I think the trick for me is keeping as much stuff outside as I possibly can without my neighbors calling animal control on me. That's the trick. That's going to be
You just have to make it look like a compost.
That's right. Turn a commune into a compost. A compost bin.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, oh, it's my compost bin. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, there was a snake on there? How interesting.
Yeah.
It was probably a gopher snake.
Cow king, probably. Who knows? Who knows?
Exactly. Yeah.
They're around.
Good times. Well, that's cool. I'm glad. Do you have any plans to? Are you moving all the babies? Or are you keeping any back for
the coastals? I'm probably gonna hold. I'll probably hold a pair back. I've had a couple people contact me wanting to do some trades.
Nice.
So I want to.
Camus has got to be getting up there in age, right?
Yeah, he's pretty old.
Yeah.
We'll see. I I definitely want to hold back just so I can keep that going. If something were to happen to either one of the adults. But man, I feel like I gotta buy new caging for all the Tracier that I'm keeping to breed, and past that, I feel like, where's all the extra room that I have? I don't have a lot of extra room for tons of snakes, so it's kind of like, as much as I'd want to hold, I want to do that, breeder thing where you're like, I'm going to hold this back, I'm going to hold that back, I want to keep this will be great, I got this plan, that plan. It's like, I got to reel in some of my, either that or I got to get a warehouse out here in Southern California and figure that out.
But that wouldn't be too expensive.
No. I'll just cut my arm off, hand it to him.
With the Tracier, is the weather where you're at similar to what they experience in the wild, or they need more of a tropical humid type setting? Could you keep them outside, I guess, is my question.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I bet I could. It probably wouldn't be ideal. I think the carpet python is probably much more suited to being kept outdoors in Southern California than Somalia. But at the same time, I kind of feel like those big-bodied snakes, and by saying big-bodied, I don't necessarily mean gigantic constrictor, but they can take kind of, some cooler temperatures as long as you kind of have some a pad or something to offset that. I think I could keep them outside. How successful I would be doing that, I don't know. I've kind of went with the approach of kind of equatorial steady state, roughly that's 79 degrees plus or minus, and when they need heat, maybe they're at 85, but nothing nothing that I would say. It's more of a flat temp kind of idea in that room, and it works really well with the day geckos and a lot of my gecko stuff. So that's primarily, one half of my snake room is pretty much going to end up all being Traciae. The other half will probably be the geckos that I have, and yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess I could try to flip it up and start trying to see, different if they will breed in different temperature regimes. But I'm not really interested in doing that just yet. I feel like I need to take it back to
the basics.
Yeah, take it back to 2019 and get this thing going again.
Of anyone, you're the best position to try that out and see if it, you've got enough pairs. To see if that would be.
I feel like, other than the fact that those babies and those adults have grown up in the exact same situation or in the exact same room, so that's the room they're used to. That's what they know. That's what they've grown up with. I feel like I could take those babies, maybe if they hadn't, or even if they had, and put them in a different kind of, thermal regime that's a little bit different than that. And they probably would breed because they're not, we're dealing with first generation captive bred animals, not wild caught stuff. That's kind of my assertion, is that they're probably a little more readily willing to breed in a little bit different of an environmental setting. And obviously, Southern California and in a inside of a house and maybe in another room in my house probably isn't so crazy of a temperature change that it would be like, oh, this is a no-go, So it wouldn't be like, even if I did, put them in a bedroom or something, I think they would be fine doing that. But it just doesn't make sense to me if, that's what they've experienced growing up their whole life. And then when you go breed them, you're going to stick them somewhere else into a different kind of thermal regime. And they're going to be like, what's going on here? What is this? Whoa. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my thought. But at the same time, like, if these babies ever do leave, when I do start moving stuff, my concern is the ones that have grown up here that leave here, will they do as well versus ones that I hatch out and then sell, shortly after I establish them. I would expect those to do better in other people's hands. It's just hard because it's like, not that they have like a grossly fragile stage, but I feel like there is definitely a stage. And I think most snake keepers who know this will agree with me that there is a stage where your snakes start to take off and they're much more robust than they are when they're first kind of hatched out. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I think if you can, I would say if you're going to experiment, maybe start with something a little younger. So if you put them outside when they're, well established, but young enough that they're a little more malleable, I guess. So that's the trick, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know, man. If I stuck those things outside, I bet they'd be demons. They'll get nice and warm, and you'll get all kinds of attitudes out of them, and
for sure,
and they would be
they could be crazy.
Oh yeah, it'd be
light you
snappy
up,
monsters.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, you ready to fight, or do we have anything else to discuss?
No, I think
cut this chit chat crap.
Oh wow, somebody sounds like they're ready to stomp some hiney.
Throw down.
Yeah.
Well, let's introduce our topic for today. So, we've kind of talked about out herping and stuff. We're running ideas by each other, but kind of the idea that if you go herping a lot, it can make you be a better keeper because you see a lot of different things, and you can be a better herpetoculturalist if you're a field herper. So that'll be our topic for today. Yes, field herping can make you a better keeper, or not so much. I don't know. So, what do you think? Should we fight about that?
Yeah, I'm down to fight about that. Let's get to the ceremonial coin toss. Justin has it ready.
Now you won the for nothing coin toss
Yeah.
last week, so let's see what we got this week. So call it.
Oh, I say that's heads.
It is tails.
Oh,
when
I
it
felt
counts,
like
man.
I felt like that's all right. I feel like I know what you're going to take.
I thought you were
here.
going to get it. Frankly,
I did too, but
I'm gonna side with the Podfather and say yes. Field herping makes you can give you insights, make you a better field or keeper. Yeah,
I'm
herpetoculturalist.
I'm cracking my knuckles as we.
All right, well. If you're ready to go, you give it your best shot. Why don't you start us out?
All right. Well, I mean, I guess it kind of depends, on what you're field herping. Like, so if what you keep is, Australian carpet pythons, and you're out, herping rattlesnakes and lizards and things like that, maybe the experience that you're getting isn't as directly targeted. So it makes more sense if you're a keeper of Australian stuff and you go to Australia and herp, then maybe that makes some sense to me, right? But just just going out and herping doesn't always inform a better outcome with your captive keeping. I think that's probably how I lead.
Okay. Well, I mean, granted, yeah, there's something to that, I would say, and I think you want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples, but at the same time, I mean, there's this thing called Convergent Evolution where you have similar conditions on, completely different continents that drive the same, adaptations and like the horned lizards and the thorny devils in Australia versus North America. So I guess I would maybe counter and say, you could maybe observe an ant-eating desert lizard and say, okay, it's probably similar to what a ant-eating desert lizard in another continent would do. And, maybe there's some subtle differences that you might learn later. But I think for the most part, you can say, okay, this is an active diurnal lizard. Maybe it's an agamid, but you compare it with like a collared lizard, a Crotophytus or something, and try to keep it similarly. So I do think there is some benefit to observing species on a different continent that may be similar in their characteristics or requirements to the ones that you like in another country if you're not able to get over to that other country. But I would agree, if you're gonna keep animals, you want to get to where those animals are. Mm-hmm. And so it definitely would be helpful seeing kind of what kind of conditions they're out in. That's kind of the big, I think Frank Reedy's did that very well, where he went and took a temp gun with him, and everybody was keeping monitor lizards at like 80 degrees with maybe a 90-degree hot spot, and everybody thought if you got above 100 that it would cook them, And he went out and he said, these rocks are like 150 degrees in the sun, and the monitors are sitting on the rocks. So I'm going to give my monitors a 150-degree basking spot on their, on their basking spot. And they turned into, monitor lizards, and they acted like monitor lizards, and they bred very well and all these things. So I made a lot of kind of advances.
I think, there's something to be said for that. Looking at those correlations in the right scale of things, in the right scope of things, and not being too specific. Like, I don't think you need to be careful, because correlation is not causation, right? And so because something is like something that is here doesn't mean that it does exactly the same thing, because the environment that it comes from is similar but maybe not the same. So you have to be careful, and maybe it gives you a broader idea, a larger better way to think. But when you get down into the minutia of things, oftentimes that's when stuff would break down for me, in my mind of, that's when you really probably have trouble saying, this does this because that does that. Like, well, maybe.
Well, I'd go back to that Frank Reed's example. He kind of claims that he learned all these things from king snakes and kept king snakes different than anybody else I've heard of keeping them. You know, he kept them in these almost like a trash can with a cage on top, so they could go down and burrow down, and have like kind of thermal regulate by going up or down. And
see, but I think,
kept them
but
at conditions similar to.
But I think king snakes taught Frank. And I don't mean to speak for Frank, and I'm not trying to say this is what it is, but it sounds to me like he learned that the thermal, regulation regimes of king snakes is much different than we thought. So that got him onto North American lizards to think, well, maybe we're wrong about that too. And then he went out with a temp gun and started blowing everybody's stuff up on the North American lizard keepers page. You know what I mean? Like I think he's right. I think he's right, but you don't see Frank posting on the Australian Varanids page about North American lizards, right? Because although
he does.
Broadly,
he used to,
well,
anyway.
I know, but broadly,
before he pissed everybody off in the monitor world.
But broadly, the point he makes about heating, monitors translates to North American lizards in general, right? For the most part. Is what is kind of where he's, or what you're saying, right?
No, what I was saying is that he learned from king snakes.
I get that part.
How to keep monitor lizards. That and he kept them very similarly, right? Gave them much higher temps than they needed and much lower temps than they needed, and they did very, very well.
And I think but what I'm saying is he didn't learn. King snakes didn't teach him how to keep monitors. The idea that king snakes maybe didn't exist at the temperatures or preferred or were comfortable with temperatures that were way outside what our accepted norms were, took him into monitors where he may have observed something and said, this is the same way. And then he started experimenting with that, and lo and behold, he had great success, which the Frank Reeds and, a lot of people have started to challenge the way we keep a lot of this stuff that we have now thermally. And, by the way, a lot of it likes it a lot cooler than we thought. Some of it likes it a lot warmer than we thought. So, boom, a breakthrough. But again, you can't say that because he was field herping king snakes, all of a sudden he understands how. Now, one led him to the other, and he had to figure that out. But I don't know, man. I think you get yourself into trouble doing that. And that's the case. You could just, you can start making all kinds of assertions and try them out. And when they're successful, you say, see, yes, field herping did this for me because I noticed this in a rosy boa and I applied it to, Chuck Wallace, and there we go. We're off to the races because they're both found out in the same kind of area. Like, well, okay, but I mean, maybe you just stumbled into that. Maybe you're not really making, maybe that's not as fair of a.
I guess I'm talking generalizations, right?
Okay.
I mean, you can probably have a broadly applicable idea that applies to reptiles in general.
I give you that.
The benefit of giving them a range of choices. And that's very difficult to do in a tub or a 4x2 cage. And so I think a lot of people say, well, great, but I don't have a room-size cage for all the animals I keep or whatnot, which they do in nature. They have unlimited space to some extent that they can choose a lot of different places to go. And so I think that's the key there that I was trying to bring up, is that you can have a broadly applicable thing that you observe in nature and say, well, these things come from the same area. What keeps them in this spot? It seems like they don't come out during the full sun, so why are they in such a hot desert environment or whatever? So they kind of find, well, a lot of the lizards that are out in the middle, they're not out in the middle of the day either. They're not enjoying the full heat of the sun. They'll sit in shade, or they'll sit in a rock crack or something like that.
But at the same time,
you'll see them in the morning and the evening.
Couldn't you inform the reverse of that, where you say, well, I saw this chuckwalla out on the rock in the middle of the day, therefore chuckwallas must just like to sun themselves in the heat of the day all day, and that must be what that is. So the idea that just because you find something situationally does not necessarily mean that that is the situation that the animal prefers. It may just have been. So being careful in the observations that you make, that one observation does not support a conclusion, but multiple observations of the same behavior over time may lead you to a better conclusion, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the strongest argument for your side, is that a lot of times when we field herp, we get a glimpse of one animal for an hour or two if you're really dedicated to sticking around that animal, and you're seeing them like on the roadside or on a rock or something, and you can watch them for a bit and kind of learn something, but unless you're getting out there a lot, you're probably not getting a lot of useful information, I guess. Well, so I would say the more you herp, the more information you can gather, and potentially the better way you can keep them.
Yeah, and I just think I think a lot of animal behavior tends to be dependent on what's happening at the time, right? So, animals are going to, maybe more be apt to be on the road when it's cooler, and they can kind of catch some of that extra heat off the road later. That would make you think that they're more active at night, or that they're seeking out, I don't know, whatever conclusion you might want to draw from that, when in fact they're not apt to be on the road. It's just you were out there at a time when it was cooler, and they were just looking, they just happened to be by the road, and the road was warmer than anything else at the time, so that's why you found them. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't feel like I gave a good example there, but
no, you're right. Like, it's just a snapshot. So reading too much into it can be just as dangerous as reading too little into it.
That's what I'm saying.
So if we take our observations and those of others, and you can kind of combine information, and that's why it's citizen science is useful, and publishing observations is useful, and why journals like Herpetological Review, why that has a section in there for just people to publish a very couple paragraph publication on their observation of in a given situation. So it may just be a one-off, but the more people that observe these things, the more information we can glean. So, and animals are dynamic, so they may change their behaviors over the years, and they may change their behaviors during their lifetime. So it's definitely important to consider that. And so but I think the person who's out there watching them day in and day out, kind of like a Frank Reedy's type, that's out there watching his desert iguanas, and his interpretations may be strange to some, or may be off, but I think he's gleaning a lot of information that could be very helpful to keeping them in captivity. And he's successful with desert lizards because he's out in the desert watching desert lizards.
Well, and I think if you and this is just me, and I'm not a strict Frank Reedy's follower or whatever, but I think
I'm not either.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think Frank's out there every day. He's making these observations, and he's posting all the time. So he's almost like a running, kind of like conclusions in flux while it's happening, and he's making these, and so he draws in some of these really good kind of hard conclusions because he's out there a lot, and he sees certain things where he's like, yes, I've seen this 100 times, and that's, you see, there's Ruby, but this is what I see, and people are like, oh, okay, but then he sees something, he's seen it before, and he says, and this is this, and people are like, but he's seen it, so in his mind it's and so I guess I'm trying to say, you can almost see kind of the leisurely kind of conclusions, which may be premature, right along in with the stuff that's like, I've seen this 100 times. This is what this is. And I think you have to be careful with those kinds of things. And I think that's partially why a lot of people give Frank so much crap, is because some stuff he's probably pretty right on. He's probably right on the head with it. Some of it, maybe, people who've seen a lot of it are like, I don't know, man. That's what you're seeing. I don't see that. Or
I think it's his delivery, and
Well,
he'll
that's
challenge
probably
folks and just say, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." Kind of,
Right.
He's very blunt and very, he challenges anything anybody says, so that can be very frustrating. It's like talking to me sometimes, I guess. But I guess thinking scientifically, what you need to do is formulate a hypothesis and say, this is what I think is going on. And then you need to make more observations to see if it supports your hypothesis or refutes your hypothesis. You have to be open to other individuals who come up with observations that either support or refute your hypothesis as well. And so that's kind of where that thing, maybe some of the things Frank does breaks down a bit, where he's challenging people too much or refuting their observations prematurely when he should be maybe considering.
But that's what I'm saying is because Frank has something he's seen that makes him convinced that they don't know what they're talking about, or that he is right and they're wrong, and ignoring other people's, you're kind of, I don't know. That's where it gets into kind of a dicey thing of like, no, I've seen that. It's a thing. Like, is it? Is it really just because you've seen it? It's a thing, or like, I mean, that's where kind of that, making observations from the wild and then applying it unilaterally, I think can get a little weird when it's like, I've seen that, but I haven't seen it enough to say that. And,
yeah, I guess my counter to that is that he did it. He did it in captivity. He took first king snakes or whatever. I wasn't around for that phase of his captive breeding, but I definitely watched the monitor breeding, and man, he was knocking it out of the park with monitors, where before nobody had really done that well with them.
Sure,
especially like multi-clutching them and things. So he proved that by demonstrating those key concepts that he'd learned in the field, not necessarily all from monitors, but from maybe desert lizards in general, applied fairly broadly. And so he kept monitors all of this, pretty much all the same. And and granted, he had more success with some than others. He was probably trying to fit all of them into too narrow of a box, maybe. But the proof was in the pudding.
Sure,
he knocked it out of the park.
It's like
you can't.
Where did his giant insights come from? His giant insights came from
herping.
heating, and feeding, which he did from observation. Those are two very broad things that he noticed that really, changed the game. And whether he noticed that in king snakes and then applied it to varanids or however, but
he noticed in king snakes, and then he went to Australia and noticed it in varanids and saw the abundance of prey items at certain times of the year.
And it's one of those things where it's like through that observation, he made a very broad but very profound insight. Yeah. Which is kind of surprising that he was the first person to really make that insight, but. Here we are. So,
and he may not have been the first person to make that insight, but he was the first herpetoculturalist to make that insight and apply it to his keeping and have success beyond what was enjoyed before that time. So I mean, that's kind of the the idea kind of behind my side, is that you can make those observations and apply the correct ones, and you'll be successful in keeping in captivity as well.
I think you're kind of talking like, if you go out in the wild and you see this and you do it, you will be wildly successful. No, you may enjoy some more success. You may have an insight that helps you do better or keep better, but you may still struggle in the same time, because this is, it's not just like you take an observation from the wild, you bring it home, and then there's success. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that happens when you're breeding anything that can affect your outcomes. And so, I think just saying like, well, you go out and there's people who I know who field herp and have crap years. Like they just don't breed anything. Is that the environment that year and where they live? Is that they just weren't paying attention that year? Is it that, they learned all the wrong things from field herping and in Australia,
or insufficient data,
So if they had more data,
you got to have the stat sig, man.
Okay.
You gotta
so
have more.
if they were stat sig, then they would be hugely successful. But since they're insignificantly, they're insig.
Yeah, they haven't.
Then they cannot enjoy the wild success which waits the stat sig herper.
And I'm not saying, of course
that's what you're asserting there is they just need to be
book learners, but a lot of people learn better by kind of getting out there and experiencing it, doing it, being in the environment kind of thing. And our glorious Podfather has made some key observations and said that this has upped his game and changed his keeping regimen and things. So
yeah, but I mean. Yeah, but he went over to Australia and he saw diamond pythons. But did he produce diamond pythons this year?
I don't know if he saw diamond pythons. I don't know if he has sufficient observations on
diamonds, okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know if he's been in the Sydney area. So, that I think that's probably high on his list to go see.
So clearly, he just lacks the firsthand experience in the wild, and that is why.
I don't know.
He's
I'd admit I don't have enough first-hand experience in the wild with like carpet pythons. I've seen a handful in the wild, but I wouldn't say
yet you had a good year.
The snapshot, yeah. I don't.
So and you out of anybody is carpet python herper extraordinaire compared to a lot of people in the States. And you would think you of all people, I know, but you would think by your rationale, you of all people would be. Having the best, but isn't this like the first year you've actually produced carpet pythons for a while because you've had some, didn't do so good last year, and that wasn't because you didn't go over to Australia and do herping. It's because you moved and you had a crap year. So, I hear what you're saying, but don't over-represent your position in this.
Oh, I'm not. I'm saying, I don't have. I was saying I don't have sufficient observation, even though I've seen several in the wild. It's not like I've studied. I've read more than I've observed. Let's put it that way. So I'm not saying you can't learn this thing through the book, but I think a lot of times the book learning clicks a lot better when you're seeing it in action, when you're seeing it in the field, and so that's kind of my. Field herping definitely increases your understanding of book learning, I would say.
I think field herping challenges your conventional wisdom about what you're keeping. I don't necessarily think that it always makes you better at breeding, or I think you're more open to ideas that because you have experiences or you see something, but I don't know that you're going to go out into the Sydney area, find diamond pythons, and come away like, that's it, I know how to breed these fuckers, I got this. And then you have success. You know what I mean? I don't think it works like that. You can go out and you can interact with them in the wild. You can see the situations. You can take temperatures. You can kind of make some like, okay, I have some significant inclinations into their physiology, their reproductive habits. But by no means does that mean that you're going to be able to just take that home because you went and did that and translate that into success.
But you can. I mean, you can formulate a lot better hypotheses in the field than you can sitting on your couch. I would counter. You know what I mean? Like you get there and you go, I bet this is significant, or I bet this is important, and you can go home and prove it. You know, you can go home and try it out and see if it makes a difference. Like, you know, the old Terry Phillip adage of, prairie rattlesnakes.
I knew shoveling snow was coming up in this.
You gotta have the shoveling snow quote.
Oh my
because
God.
That's not a condition in the but I mean the temperature.
It's not a condition in the wild.
Could be important.
It's not.
It is, and I'm just saying, if you had a large enough cage and you let it snow in there, you'd probably be okay.
And maybe if prairie rattlers had arms, they would shovel snow into their cage. How do you know, sir?
That's exactly what I'm driving at.
I knew that's what you were driving at.
We need to attach arms to snakes to see if they will shovel snow.
Now we're getting somewhere.
We of course you can misinterpret things, and I think
most definitely
a good example of that is Gila Monsters, where most zoos and maybe this is just because they're displaying them and they want people to be able to see them, but Gila Monsters spend the majority of their time in a tight little crack underground, and so if you're keeping them in a zoo, that's not very exciting for the viewer to get a glimpse of a Gila, from deep inside of a crack. And so, they have to find creative ways to try to keep them. But if they want to breed them, they take them back in the back and they put them in a little tub.
They shove them in a crack
tight and small, and then they go, here's how you breed Gila Monsters. And that's kind of the secret to breeding Gila Monsters, is you replicate that wild, natural history element of their keeping and stuff. But I'm sure it took a lot of people a lot of hours to observe that and say, but they're mostly down in a crack, and they try it in captivity and it helps.
But they'll stick them in a tub which is tight and small, and they'll feel safe, and that will put them in better conditions to breed. Right now, are they creating a giant lem crack so that they can shove them in there, and then they're like, I'm in a lem crack now, I can breed, that's all I needed was a good lem crack, and now I'm gonna reproduce. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think
well, you tell me where that came from.
Lem cracks?
The successful breeding of Gila Monsters using tight tubs.
Well,
where did that come from?
I'm not arguing the fact that the natural history informs the success. What I'm arguing is that the insight comes from they like tight spaces. They're often found in tight spaces. When we try to breed these, tight spaces is important, not misconstruing the idea that these guys are found shoved into rocks or they're down in burrows. They will only breed when they're shoved in a rock or down in a burrow. No, they'll breed in a tub or whatever, but you have to put them in the right kind of situation in order to make it successful. I.e., don't make the condition too specific. Right? Make the insight at the proper level of, they like tight spaces, and then figure out how you make those tight spaces. To provide right? That. Like
but it all comes back to what was observed in the wild by a field.
Absolutely. And I'm not. We're same page there. We're same page there.
Yeah.
I just there's you. I guess what I'm saying is you could get those people who are like, I am going to breed Gila Monsters, and I went out and went to Arizona, and I saw them shoved into these tight rocks. So the only way you breed Gila Monsters is by shoving them into these tight rocks in captivity to get them to No. You missed the insight. You hit it, but you walked right into it rather than catching it before it slapped you in the face. Right? Does that make sense?
I think so.
I'm agreeing with you. Saying. Okay, I'm agreeing with you. You can just.
But you're saying it could be misconstrued.
It could be misconstrued.
You could provide the wrong element and say this is what's important.
I'm not saying. Yeah, I'm saying that you could be too specific, and you could say that these things has to be in. Yeah, exactly. You get so fixated on the situation that you find it in that you miss the bigger point of why it's there.
Sure.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I want to bring up this topic because I think this has been very applicable to my herpetocultural experiences. When I go out field herping and I find a species in the wild that I keep in captivity, it increases my excitement and drive to keep them properly and keep them happy and make, almost try to replicate what I saw in the wild in my herp room, so I basically have that experience reliving itself in my herp room that I had in the wild. And of course that's very difficult because we don't have the unlimited space and that kind of thing, but it's really made me up my game and try to keep my stuff better. And it's also kind of taken my excitement away from the morphs and the irregularities, and makes me appreciate the wild type because that's what I saw in the wild, and I saw how they integrated into their environment and they blended in with the rocks and things like that. And I've heard Eric say this quite a bit too, that that you appreciate what you have a lot more after you see it in the wild and get excited about it. And so I think that definitely corresponds with an increase in better care and concern for the animal and things like that. So I think that's another benefit of field herping in regards to keeping in captivity.
I like that you say that until the 1 hour point where you're like, all right, he can't even argue this. I'm just going to hit him with it.
We
the
went
1
2
hour
hours last week.
I know we did. We would not shut up last week, but I'm not trying to argue this for 2 hours. But no, and I can't. Look, I'm never going to argue against anything that increases somebody's, excitement for something that they keep because they went out and see it in the wild. Like, I kind of think that's part of the whole point of herping is to go out and see something that maybe not that you don't necessarily keep. I don't necessarily keep rattlesnakes, but I'd love to go see them in the wild. But at the same time, like that being in the environment where a snake that you keep comes from, and it's you're just kind of in it, right? I can't really say anything to
Well, then I'll give you something, because I also find that when I see something in the wild, it makes me want to keep it in captivity, and that can be a dangerous, slippery slope. You know what I mean? Like, then you get into stuff you maybe doesn't fit in very well with your reptile room, or you're like, what did I get? What did I collect this for? Why did I get this? It doesn't really fit. You don't think it through because you're so excited and high from seeing it in the wild that you just go home and buy one or something.
Yeah,
it can really get you excited for stuff maybe you shouldn't be keeping.
I almost feel like I almost feel like you don't need help with that. But that's true. That's true. Yeah. You're
that's
you're the one
problem.
who's
There's
definitely
so many.
Yeah, you're always the one who's like, there's always so many cool reptiles.
Yeah.
But by your rationale, all you need to do is go out and find them in the wild, and you should be able to bring them back and keep them better because you found them in a wild.
No, I would say you probably have a better chance than somebody who's never seen them in the wild.
Even though they don't fit in with anything that you're doing or anything like that.
Yeah, but how many things are kept just in... we didn't know what we were doing because nobody had information in the wild. I think that's very applicable to green tree pythons. Everything,
sure.
Hot tropical forest. Let's give them a 90-degree, temperature basking spot, and then we'll feed them rats, and they'll do great. And surprise, surprise, that doesn't work so well. And so, why are my females dropping dead at the, at 3 years old or 5 years old? And, well, maybe it's because they don't have 90 degrees. They're pretty much 70 degrees all year long, and they live in, a dense forest, and it's fairly cool, and their meals are few and far between. Those kind of things that, again, somebody seeing them in the wild made those observations, published those results, and then we could kind of have a paradigm shift in how we keep things. Now, it's not to say that, you have to keep something exactly like it's kept in the wild. Again, we don't necessarily have to shovel snow in, and maybe some things don't even necessarily need a cooling period, and, it's not as firmly wired as we think it is, or those kind of things.
And then I think the other point here that's worth bringing up is that I think the longer generations sit in captivity, the less relevant their natural history may become in how, I think...
Yeah, definitely. Like
something that's been line bred for 2 decades, probably
the domestication of
is so
these
far
animals,
removed
like the
from
ball
its
pythons
wild,
or
exactly,
leopard geckos or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, so you have to kind of be careful when you're, when you're doing that. And I think, hey, it's good, you can make conclusions based on natural history or field observations in situ that inform about, parameters that are definitely okay for the animal to exist in, but always kind of you need to take in context, what's in front of you, what you're dealing with.
And I do think there is kind of a process of figuring out what conditions are really critical and what are kind of secondary conditions for success. And working those out can take a long time and take experimentation or take trying different things, and that can also lead to less success when you're changing up things year after year. And so that's kind of the negative side of that. So somebody in your position who has a lot of different a large group of the same species, you can try different conditions on different pairs. Now, of course, stat sig, you got to have your numbers and your time and your observations and things. But seeing how they behave in the wild and seeing them in the wild, it just increases your chances and gives you maybe more insights or things to think about. But conversely, that could give you more things. Oh, I need to try this. I need to try this. I need to try this. And you're changing things endlessly, and you can also
chase your tail,
negate that, and reduce your success.
And I think there's a level of like, okay, I've never been to the Halmahera Island chain, but I kind of have a broad book, based set of assumptions about that, and I think that coupled with consistency probably leveraged better results. If I would have went there, maybe I could have drawn some conclusions, but I don't know that would have been, because I can't always bring, equatorial climate to Southern California. I can bring Mediterranean climate, which, not the same, but has some attributes. So some of it's the hand you're dealt a little bit. But nobody can ever take away the knowledge that you gain while you're out there field herping, that area, and making those insights. That's definitely true. That's definitely true. So,
and I think the more people that get out and experience things in the wild, the more you can discuss ideas and the more you can bounce off ideas and ask them if they've tried this or that or the other, So it is good to have connections to people that live in the habitat of the things you like and that go out and observe them on a daily basis or a weekly, whatever, regular basis. And, I found got a lot of benefit out of, field herpers in Australia that are out observing these things, and they can give you boots on the ground insights because, another great example of that is before I went to Australia, I thought, okay, jungle carpets look like this, coastal carpets look like this. You have these images in your head because the predominant lines in the U.S. look like that. And you get over there and you see this huge diversity, and you're like, oh, I had no clue. I thought this was this and that was that. And so you're arguing things that are not necessarily true.
That's why
of your limited, narrow experience.
That's why Aussies think we're wankers.
Well, the shoe fits.
Fair enough.
Then again, there's a lot of Aussies out there, just a bunch of bogans. But,
oh, nice.
You got to pull out the Aussie slang.
Yeah.
No. I don't know. this is an interesting topic. I definitely think that, and this goes to anything. Any observation can lead you closer to or further away, and sometimes we get down the wrong track, and we have to kind of readjust and collect the data. And if you're not necessarily collecting the right data, that could lead you down the wrong path as well.
Yeah.
So it's fairly complicated, but I do think there are some of those things like we discussed earlier that are kind of can be universally applied. Reptiles are ectothermic, so they need some kind of external heat source, and some need it more than others, and some need it more intensely than others, and things like that. But those kind of broad conclusions can be kind of fine-tuned as you get into the species a little more. And if you start out more broadly and kind of refine as you go, you might have better success along the way if you're out gathering more information from the wild. But that's kind of maybe how I'd finish this thing out. I don't know.
Cool.
Unless you have some more burning topics or burning ideas in your mind.
Nothing burning. It's all smoldering now.
It's a pile of rubble.
Burned down.
Smoldering rubble.
It's burned down.
Yeah, we burn this topic to the ground.
The fire is out.
Well, if we missed anything, you listener out there, let us know, and we can maybe revisit this down the road or something. But I love field herping. I think it's one of the greatest things about being interested in reptiles is getting out and seeing them in the wild. And I think like this last trip, right? I'd seen pictures and I'd read about black rattlesnakes, and I thought the Arizona black rattlesnake, and I thought they're neat looking, but I didn't really appreciate them, and then I see one in the wild, and now I'm like, those things are freaking cool, and I want to read more about them and learn more about them and see them again in the wild and things like that. And I was finding different localities and saying, oh, they're not too far from, they're kind of northern Arizona, almost into Utah, so I can get into their habitat a little easier if I go to this
You know what it
area
is? It's like a crack. It's like a crack habit,
It is. It's addicting. It really is.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You get a taste of that other kind of meth, and you're like, oh, this meth is great. I need some more of this.
Exactly. Yeah, the other crack is down in your area, your neck of the woods, and I'm like, dude, I'm jealous of where you live. You can just drive an hour or two over the mountain, and you're in such awesome habitat.
That's
many cool
That's
reptiles.
that limb crack.
Yeah, that Borrego area just calls my name. It's my type of habitat. I just love herping in the desert.
Well, you know where I live.
Yeah, well, I think I've been out there a time or two.
That's fair.
You got some catching up to do.
Wow.
Get you out field herping, man. All right, well, this has been a show. We got a shout out to the Podfather and his gang of ill repute, and his co-host Owen, and
we're referring to him as Owen now.
The Mac and Wookie.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Coining of Terms, Mac and Wookie.
Give the guy his respect.
What else? You've come up with some good ones, man. You're like the king of that. Mac and Wookie, McPekin.
Yeah.
What else did you? What else you got?
Man, I feel like there was more.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's
we're gonna have to work on everybody else. We're gonna have to give everybody is gonna have a persona.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
The new intern, the field herping intern. You haven't met Dustin?
No, you guys herp together, huh?
He's a cool guy. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah. He's the real deal. We had some good times herping.
Is he possibly younger than Lucas?
I think I don't think he's younger than Lucas. What was he, like 20?
It's like it is the battle of the baby faces
something
now.
Like that. Yeah. I mean, he is married, so he's at least advanced beyond Lucas in that regard.
Poor Lucas. Hey, no, Lucas is living the good life, man.
Yeah.
Don't
touring
pigeon
with the band. And he's getting a lot of good animals.
Don't pigeonhole this kid, man. He's living his best life. Don't do
put
it.
Baby in a cage.
Yeah,
don't
man.
Put baby in the corner.
No.
In the cage.
Don't put baby in the cage.
You can put him in a cage.
I mean, I
just
guess.
Don't put him in the corner of the cage. Yeah. Lucas is the man.
Single
I
and mingle.
Need to get out.
But I think Lucas has a girlfriend, so
again. Yeah, so he's not far behind.
Yeah,
Dustin,
he's. Well, there's a woman trying to tie him down somewhere.
I'm not out here trying to rank the interns, but herping with Dustin was a great thing.
We could rank the interns. I mean, I'm not above
ranking of the interns.
I'm not above that.
I think that falls under Owen's jurisdiction. But
I know.
But again, he doesn't listen, so we can do whatever we want. We have the freedom. Man, he was sure whining about us
if he's not ranking
about us stealing his slot.
Hey, right here.
Yeah.
If he's not ranking the interns, he's macking slacking.
This brought to you by Chuck Pullen.
Mackin' slackin'. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah. I did the Schmitty tiers. I gotta give myself some credit.
Dude, no, that's a good. That's a solid.
That's a fun one.
That is a solid.
And Stat Sig.
Yeah.
I came up with Stat Sig too.
Yeah.
So
both solids.
We're some good coiners here,
dude.
Hey, and we flip a coin every week.
That's right. We're hey, listen. We are pulling our weight, Podfather. We are pulling our weight. We can't beat those.
We're in here week in and week out pulling our.
We can't beat those Aussies in our numbers, but we bring the heat. We bring.
They've been falling behind
thunder.
lately. I don't know.
Have they?
I guess Luke had some rough. Was it Luke? He had.
This is not the time for you to forget names.
It's not.
Damn it, man.
It doesn't matter when it is.
No, I know. I know.
Jason and Luke.
Yeah.
It was Luke.
It was Luke. Okay.
Fan of the Gila. He had. I guess he had some. He released a YouTube video that was talking about how he had some crappy luck. Some of his animals died and couldn't figure out what was going on. So I was kind of watching his video while I was working, so I wasn't paying that close attention. So maybe he figured it out. But yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. And it's never fun to have those challenges. And I mean, that's kind of the downside of keeping live animals is sometimes they are not live anymore. So, but our condolences, and hopefully you get things worked out and figured out what's going wrong. And but I mean. He's got a baby coming, like in a couple weeks here. Maybe it's already here. Who knows? So
he's going to have less time to compete with us.
Day is coming.
Our children are grown. Let's take the challenge.
Sucker. Yeah. Our youngest are 13, 14 years old.
And other than the hurt backs, this is the benefit of being older.
There you go. Yeah, I think Jason has a couple kids, right? He's got a couple, and they're kind of getting him back into the reptiles a little more.
There you go.
He kind of got out when he had them as babies, but now they're helping him get back in.
Nice.
So. The beauty of children, you can always justify your herp addictions with your children,
as long as you can get them into it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good times. Well. I don't know. There's been some fun content out there. I've been listening to a couple. I saw the Venom Exchange podcast. Phil and Ipper interviewed Ty Iper. So
I know. I saw that episode. I haven't listened to it. Work has just been. I want to sit down and really listen to that episode and give it all my full attention.
Knowing that they interviewed Ty before they interviewed Scott.
Ooh.
I wonder if he's hurt by that, or he's probably.
I'm sure he's
excited for his wife.
He will be texting you as soon as this episode comes out, if he is.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, you get to hear the soothing voice of Nipper and Phil. I mean, you don't get many better voices in the herp podcast industry as those two. So, yeah, that's a good one.
They keep you buzzing, mate.
Completely buzzing, yeah. Yeah. Any other good stuff? Check out Lizard Brain Radio. And Chuck's latest interview. He had some other cool guests on there too. Recently, what else did I see on there? I thought it was the same because he isn't. Bill's not on that other podcast that you went on.
Bill?
Tiny. He's not on the.
Was that
Tiny Herp podcast?
Pint-sized reptiles.
Pint-sized reptiles. Who's that on there?
That's Travis.
Travis?
Yeah.
Is that Travis Wyman? And who are the other?
I'm trying to remember.
But Bill's not on that one.
No,
so
no,
I saw like
not.
the tiny geckos, and I'm thinking, is this just a re-release of the pint size? So I need to listen to your interview. I haven't done that yet. So.
You haven't?
Not
Oh, you
yet.
should listen to
I'll
it.
Get to it, I'm sure.
I
No,
said some
will.
nice things about you.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
I did.
There you go.
You almost made me take him back with this
be-
fight, but I won't do it. I won't do it. You deserve what
Yeah.
you deserve.
I think every
the praise
week you
got.
have to have like a few days off of me.
That's right.
Whatever.
That's right.
Getting frustrated with
Yeah.
my, superior logic and reasoning skills. Is that why? Is that why?
Not sure that's what it is, but okay, no, we'll run with that. Let's run with that. We're running with that.
Sounds good, man. Well, I enjoyed the discussion. This is always good. You're a great one to debate with. So, thanks for your insights and thanks for debating the topic. So,
Yeah, you're welcome.
we'll be back again. We'll do this again if you're willing. There's
Yeah.
a big pause there. Are
Yeah.
you willing?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Good.
I didn't know I actively
good.
had to participate in the answer there. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it was a rhetorical question.
I thought that's what
Yeah.
it was. That's why I didn't say anything.
I am glad you're the
Yeah.
host of the show.
Yeah.
And so
You're the host
it's
of the
awesome
show.
to Recorded it.
I am the co-host.
We're the co-hosts.
Stop.
So,
Dude.
anyway,
I have covered this extensively. I am the co-host, and you are the host.
all right, we'll go with that. I
Yeah.
guess. Thanks to NPR Network, the Podfather, for allowing us to record and release this show on his network. It's a great system. Eric does all the work. All we have to do is get on here and spout our nonsense, and then he makes all the magic happen. So thanks, Eric, and your band of, what did I call them? Band of ill repute? No.
Ill reputes. Yes, I believe
Yeah.
that's what you said.
All right. So thanks to the NPR Network. Check them out on all the socials, all the meads. Is that what the cool kids are saying?
Don't ask me what cool kids are saying.
Oh, that's right. We're old.
Yeah.
Okay, well, check him out on TikTok, because that's where all the cool kids go. No, check him out on Instagram, Facebook, Morelia Python Radio Network. Is that right? I think that's right.
Yeah, you want to check them out on the Morelia Python Radio Network. But you could also check them out on MoreliaPythonRadioNetwork.com.
Okay, on the website.
On the
check out
website.
the website.
Yeah.
All right. My brain is empty now, and I think it's time to go. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you again next week for another episode of Reptile Fight Club.
Field herping. It works 60% of the time, every time.
Fight Club.